What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So there are currently over 800 Pokemon in existence, with even more on the way in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And because of this, I think it's safe to say that there is a Pokemon out there for everyone. However, even though everyone has their favorite, everyone definitely has a least favorite too. And it's just a matter of fact that some Pokemon aren't as popular or don't get as much attention as some of the other more popular ones do. With that said though, even though there are some Pokemon that are often overlooked or considered unpopular, that does not mean that they have nothing to offer. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Every Pokemon has something cool that it can offer, and there are a bunch of them out there that are way cooler than you actually think, and that is the topic of today's video. In today's video, we are going to be going over 10 Pokemon in particular that are way cooler than they seem on the surface. This is because of some interesting facts about them, or a really convincing theory that's been created around them. Just different things like that that give these Pokemon an added level of coolness that can really make you appreciate them that much more as a Pokemon fan. Now, even though most of the Pokemon in this video aren't necessarily considered fan favorites, there are a couple in here that you would probably consider more cool, but even with that said, the things that we're going to be covering in this video will make even the cool Pokemon seem that much cooler, and I am so excited to discuss this with you guys, so why don't we go ahead and just get right into it. Alright, these 10 Pokemon were selected completely at random more or less, and they are in no particular order, so we are going to be starting off with Koffing and Weezing. Koffing and Weezing do have a level of iconicness, not only being Gen 1 Pokemon, but also basically being the signature Pokemon of James from the Pokemon anime. However, with that said, they are certainly not the most popular Pokemon as well, but I have something very interesting for you that makes both of them a heck of a lot cooler. It has actually been theorized by fans that Koffing and Weezing could have actually been created by Team Rocket as an attempt to create their own Ghost-type Pokemon in order to combat Mewtwo. Another popular theory within the fan community is that Team Rocket are actually good guys that are attempting to stop Mewtwo throughout the game, since they of course created it and it subsequently went on a rampage. Part of this theory states that they attempted to catch some Ghost-type Pokemon when they went to the Pokemon Tower, because of course Psychic, Mewtwo's type, is weak to Ghost. But of course, thanks to you, the player, they were not able to do that. So from there, this theory states that they actually attempted to create some Ghost-type Pokemon themselves. And when you take a look at Koffing and Weezing, this actually makes a lot of sense, because they are both smog, gas-based Pokemon, and when you look at the one Ghost-type family that lives in the Kanto region, the first stage of that line is Ghastly, a gas-based Ghost-type Pokemon, so it would make a lot of sense for Team Rocket to try and emulate this, but obviously, however, Team Rocket wasn't really able to create a gaseous creature that was able to keep itself self-contained, and so they had to come up with some type of shell-like structure in order to contain that gas-like form. And that's exactly what Koffing and Weezing are, because we can see the gas coming out of them, and then the shell-like body we see on the outside is just that, a shell that contains the gas inside. And Weezing in particular can even be a symbol of this experimentation, because Weezing obviously looks a bit deformed because it's got the big main head, it's got a smaller head, and then it's got a third kind of nub, if you will, that didn't really end up being anything. And overall, it kind of looks like an experiment that went bad. And this could be the result of Team Rocket's experiments in trying to create a ghost-like Pokemon, and ultimately it just didn't work out, and we got the deformed looking Pokemon that is Weezing instead. This is just a theory, but it's a very convincing one if you ask me, and it gives a very interesting potential backstory to a couple of Pokemon that would most of the time be otherwise overlooked. Next up, we're going to jump to the Hoenn region with Volbeat and Illumise. Now, these two Pokemon, almost as soon as they were revealed, were pretty much overlooked because A, even though they're counterparts, they don't evolve, and B, they're not really viable in battle, so no one really paid much attention to them from the get-go. However, if you take a closer look at their design, they actually have one of the more interesting inspirations that we've ever seen in a Pokemon. I actually mentioned this one as well as a couple others we're going to be talking about in a previous video, but it's just so interesting that I had to bring it up again. Volbeat and Illumise, in addition to being based on fireflies, are actually also based on a greaser and a flapper respectively, which are two different types of fashion styles that originate from the 1950s and 1920s. These things are definitely more subtly featured in their designs, but if you take a closer look, you can begin to see these different elements of these two fashion styles begin to pop out, and just the simple fact that they are there in the first place and so seamlessly blend with their other inspiration in a firefly just adds such a cool level and just a different layer to these Pokemon that really make them so much more than just unevolved, non-competitively viable Pokemon, because they have such a cool inspiration and a cool blend of different inspirations that really makes them awesome Pokemon in my own opinion. Another Pokemon with a somewhat hidden inspiration is Roggenrola, and even though it's very obvious to me now, it did not even occur to me until recently that Roggenrola is actually partially based on a speaker in addition to just being based on a rock. And not only that, the name Roggenrola literally comes from rock and roll. So this Pokemon, in addition to being based on a rock, also takes heavy musical inspirations as well. Like I said, I might be in the minority of people who did not realize this at first, but honestly for me, this took Roggenrola from a Pokemon that I really didn't care about to a Pokemon that I honestly am really fascinated by and I respect a lot, just for the simple fact that it weaved something into its main design as rock, did it so seamlessly, and it just adds such an interesting layer to this Pokemon's design that you can't help but respect it. Now, another Pokemon from Unova that also has some really cool kind of hidden design inspirations is Temple. Now, once again, I might just be slow, but in addition to being based on a tadpole, Temple is also based just on the concept of music in general, as it not only has speakers or headphones around its ears, but its eyebrows are also musical notes, and its tail also resembles a metronome. This inspiration comes from the fact that the Japanese word for tadpole is also the same as the Japanese word for musical notes. So Game Freak essentially took these two ideas and put them together into one Pokemon as a pun of sorts. And rounding out the trio of Pokemon that have really cool things within their designs that can be very easily missed, or maybe I'm just slow, is Beware. Now, right off the bat, when you look at Beware, it kind of has a weird, strange, blank look on its face, and it kind of has just a weird kind of color scheme and design going on in general, especially for a bear Pokemon. Its name also being kind of a cheesy pun of the word beware doesn't really help much either, but once again, all of this becomes immediately justified when you realize that not only is Beware based on a bear, it's also based on a mascot costume. This explains the blank look on its face, this explains the weird coloration for its head being symbolic of being able to take off a mascot's head, and it also explains partially where the where part of Beware's name comes from. It's not just a cheesy pun on the word beware, it also factors in the actual word wear, as in to wear clothes, because it's a mascot costume that you would wear as a person. Once again, maybe I'm slow, but this took Beware for me from a Pokemon that I did not like initially to a Pokemon that I really, really respect, and if you did not know this, hopefully it can do the same for you too. Up next, we actually have 3 Pokemon in one, and that would be the entire Ampharos family. Now, the thing here that makes these Pokemon extra cool is actually all having to do with their names, because starting with Mareep, it's obviously a pretty standard sheep Pokemon. It really doesn't deviate too much from the animal that it's based on. What makes it cool, though, is that its name Mareep, in addition to having part of the word sheep, also is an anagram of the word Ampere, which is a unit of electrical energy referencing its electric type, and once again just adds a nice level of depth to its design. Flaffy, its evolution, also has a clever thing going on with its name, because in addition to having the word ba, as in the sound a sheep makes, in its name, it also has 2 A's, as in double A batteries, once again referencing the electric type, and once again giving an added level of depth to the Pokemon. And finally, we have Ampharos, whose name comes from amp, once again again a unit of electrical energy, and Pharos, which is Greek for lighthouse, which references the actual role it takes in the games, where it powers a lighthouse in Olivine City in the Johto region. And just to make Ampharos even more interesting, it actually during the development of Gold and Silver was originally going to be an electric dragon type, and its Japanese name Denryu literally means electric dragon. Coming up next is another Johto Pokemon in the form of Snubbull, and even though this little tidbit of information is just purely speculation, it definitely adds a very interesting potential backstory to Snubbull's design that makes it a heck of a lot more interesting if indeed this were the case. The idea here is that Snubbull was possibly originally intended as a legendary Pokemon for Gold and Silver. The reason why this idea came about is because in the Gold and Silver beta demo that was leaked last year, Snubbull is one of the last Pokemon in the Pokedex next to all of the other legendary Pokemon. On top of this, it does not evolve like it does in the final, and to top it off, Snubbull is literally known as the Fairy Pokemon, which is essentially what Celebi is, who is the actual mythical of the Johto region, who also does not appear in this demo Pokedex where all of this is occurring. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of speculation, definitely take it with a grain of salt, but at the very least, it gives us a very interesting potential bit of backstory to Snubbull that definitely makes it a little bit more interesting, even if we can't say for sure if it's true. Okay, this next one is one that I just barely realized myself, and I'm kind of shocked I really haven't seen anyone else talk about it because it's kind of a big deal. The idea here is that Whiscash, a Pokemon from Generation 3, could actually potentially be a reworked version of Qwilfish's original evolution from Generation 2. As we just discussed in the beta demo for Pokemon Gold and Silver, there were a bunch of Pokemon that did not make the final game, and one of them was an evolution for Qwilfish. We actually got to see a front sprite of what this Pokemon looked like, and it bears an uncanny resemblance to Whiscash. Now, granted, both of these Pokemon do have some differences, as is to be expected from beta to final release, but once again, they have some extreme similarities, like both having the exact same body shape, both having a yellow lightning bolt-like symbol on their forehead, and both having the exact same big lips. If I were to guess, I would say we're onto something here, and Whiscash could very well be an edited, changed up version of Qwilfish's original evolution. Now we have what is arguably the coolest Pokemon on this list in Tyranitar, and even though Tyranitar doesn't need any help being cool, we have a little tidbit here that makes him just that much more interesting. It is very possible that Tyranitar, or at least an early version of him, was originally planned to debut in Generation 1. The reason I say this is because recently a bunch of never-before-seen beta Generation 1 Pokemon were revealed to the public, and one of these was a Pokemon that resembles Tyranitar pretty significantly. In addition to this, we've also seen Tyranitar appear on the cover of a magazine that contained a very early promo for Pokemon Gold and Silver, so given these two factors, it's very possible that Tyranitar, or a beta version of him, was originally going to appear in Pokemon Red and Blue, but was eventually saved for Pokemon Gold and Silver. And last but not least, speaking of Pokemon that were potentially saved for later generations, we have the Popplio family. Now, of course, Popplio is the water starter for Generation 7 that was just recently introduced to us a few years ago in Pokemon Sun and Moon, but it's actually fairly likely that Popplio, or at least once again an earlier version of him, could have been considered as early as Generation 2. Once again, in the beta of Pokemon Gold and Silver, there was a water starter for these games that did not make the final release that actually heavily resembles the Popplio family. It actually kind of looks like a more masculine version of what the Popplio family would eventually become, but even still, the resemblance for each member of this family is definitely there for each version of its final official counterpart. Just like with the Wish Cache comparison, there are obviously some differences here, but once again that is to be expected going from beta to final release. And another thing that needs to be considered is that these Pokemon potentially were going from Johto to Alola, so naturally some changes needed to be made to them in order for them to fit in with the theme of the region, the theme of the games, and the theme of the starters that they would eventually sit alongside. So even though it's not a direct one-to-one comparison, it's at least decently likely, given the uncanny resemblance between the two, that the original idea for Popplio started off as an idea for a Johto starter all the way back in Pokemon Gold and Silver. And there we have it, everybody. Those were some awesome things about some Pokemon that make them cooler than you probably initially thought. Now, once again, that's not to say that any of these Pokemon are uncool. It just makes them cooler than what you probably saw on the surface, because there's always some hidden detail within every Pokemon that makes its appearance and its presence within the Pokemon franchise worthwhile and meaningful. If you guys enjoyed the video though, be sure to give it a like and let me know down in the comments below if you learned anything new, if you have anything of your own to share, or just what you think of these Pokemon in general. Are they your favorite? Do you think they're cool now because of this? Let me know down in the comments below. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more new Pokemon content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, including plenty of future Sword and Shield coverage as we get more information for the games. And finally, if you would like to further support the channel outside of just watching videos, consider following me on Spotify and listening to some of my Pokemon remixes, because that is one of the easiest ways outside of watching videos to help support the channel and help support future videos, and that is always greatly appreciated. With all of that being said though, I will be back on Saturday for another video, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as it goes live. And once again, as always, I love you guys, and until the next one, I will smell you guys later.